Next on the news, thousands attend a mass held by Pope Francis at one of the oldest pilgrimage sites in North America. Also,
it's going to be harder and harder for him to take this sort of trip.
We'll speak with Inez San Martin from Crux about how the Pope is faring on this trip with his knee pain. And bishops nationwide focusing on marital love and the creation of life for Natural Family Planning Awareness Week. Plus, the engaged couple who sped up their wedding plans after they both miraculously survived a small plane crash. I'm Christine Persichetti. Currents News starts right now. The faithful in Canada boarding buses before dawn and singing, flocking to the Holy Father's Mass. Pope Francis celebrated the liturgy at a famous shrine in Quebec, one that was built in 1658 to house a miraculous statue of Jesus' grandmother, St. Anne. While there, the Holy Father said Jesus will lead us from failure to hope and healing. Pope Francis greeted with cheers as he made his way to the National Shrine of St. Anne de Beaupre in Quebec Thursday morning. Thousands converged on one of the oldest and most popular pilgrimage sites in North America to see the Pope. Those who couldn't get a seat inside watched on big screens outside as the Holy Father continues what he called a journey from failure to hope. During his homily, Francis reflected on a reading about Adam and Eve to help us understand our own participation in evil.
In confronting the scandal of evil and the body of Christ wounded in the flesh of our Indigenous brothers and sisters, we too have experienced deep dismay. We too feel the burden of the fall.
On Monday, Pope Francis apologized to Canada's Indigenous community for the Church's role in the abuses suffered at residential schools, the reason behind his penitential pilgrimage. And at this Mass, he called upon Jesus to walk by our side in this journey of reconciliation.
Let us believe that Jesus draws near to us on our journey. Let us go out to Him, to meet Him. Let us allow His Word to interpret the history we are making as individuals and as a community, and show us the way to healing and reconciliation.
2,000 people sat inside the Basilica. Those seats were reserved for Indigenous participants, delegations from Eastern Canadian dioceses, and some government officials. As we mentioned, the Shrine of St. Anne is the oldest pilgrimage site in North America. The site has a long history with miracles, starting with its construction in the late 1650s. The man who was hired to build the shrine suffered from rheumatism, and after he laid 3 stones on the shrine's foundation, he was cured. Pilgrims have been flocking there in hopes of a miracle ever since. Every year, the shrine welcomes almost 1 million visitors annually. And if you look near the entrance of the basilica, there are 2 pillars filled with racks of crutches, canes, and braces left by pilgrims who report they have been healed. Joining us now to break down the Pope's journey so far is the Rome Bureau Chief for Crux, Inez San Martin. Hi, Inez.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Thanks for being here. All right. In his homily today, Pope Francis asked if he could accompany those whose hearts are filled with pain. We know the Indigenous have asked for more than an apology, and the Canadian government made it clear yesterday that the apology didn't go far enough. So where does Francis go from here?
There are 3 things that could be the next step. It's something that both Indigenous communities and the Canadian government have complained about, is the fact that Pope Francis never mentioned the sexual abuses that took place in these schools. Then he apologized for the church's involvement in these schools that the Canadian government run, but he never mentioned sexual abuse. Second, there is a lot of lobbying right now, both within the Indigenous communities and the government from Canada, for the Vatican to, express an opinion and maybe even issue an apology for the doctrine of discovery, which is what allowed many Europeans, when they discovered land in Canada and the United States, throughout Latin America, to actually seize it as their own. And the third thing that the Pope could do is to actually return many indigenous artifacts from Canada that are currently in the Vatican museums. That is something that the indigenous asked for when they were in Rome 4 months ago. And this is something the Vatican has expressed a willingness to actually act on.
So we'll have to wait and see to see if the Pope does any of that. Now, you've traveled with the Pope covering his visits to many different areas of the world. Given his knee problems, what have you noticed that's different about this trip? Is he slowing down?
Yeah, there are several things that are different. Although, the past few trips, he was already slowing down. We see him doing one, maybe two things every day. When I remember at the very beginning, I would have to cover 5 or 6 speeches in any given day. We see him in the wheelchair, which of course means, there are a lot of places where he cannot reach, and we don't see him standing up to greet people. It's always people coming down or, to eye level with the Pope. All of these things are interesting and, will definitely have an impact on Pope Francis' traveling schedule in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you know, the Pope was supposed to go to the Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan earlier this month, but he canceled it because of his knee. What does that say about the Holy Father and this particular visit that he didn't cancel it?
I think we know, Pope Francis knows that no matter what happens and no matter how long his pontificate runs, it's going to be harder and harder for him to take this sort of trips. So he didn't want to postpone Canada in addition to postponing the trip to Africa, because he knows that both are very important trips that he has to get done.
All right, Inez San Martin, Rome Bureau Chief at Crux. Thanks so much for your insight.
No, thank you guys.
Following his Mass at the National Shrine of Saint Anne de Beaupre, the Holy Father presided over Vespers at the Notre Dame de Quebec Basilica Cathedral. Joined together with the Archbishop of Quebec and the President of the Canadian Conference of Catholic Bishops, Pope Francis dedicated the evening prayer service to consecrated people, seminarians, and pastoral workers. The Basilica Cathedral is Canada's oldest church and has been designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. If you didn't get to watch the prayer service live, then you're in luck. If you're watching us on Thursday at 7 p.m., Net TV will air the Holy Father's Vespers at 8:30 p.m. Again, that's right here on Net TV at 8:30 p.m. Speaking with Canada's top government officials and representatives from Indigenous groups, Pope Francis renewed his request for forgiveness for the harm done to Native communities.
Que el mal sufrido por los pueblos indígenas y que hoy nos avergonzamos nos sirva de advertencia.
The Holy Father also emphasized how short-term interests are trying to overshadow Indigenous values, such as love for the family and respect for nature. The Holy Father ended his day Wednesday at Quebec's Plains of Abraham for a cultural celebration of both Indigenous and non-Indigenous artists. The theme of the event was Walking Together, Hope for Reconciliation, and it highlighted music from a wide variety of cultural and spiritual backgrounds. During the event, a delegation of Indigenous leaders spoke on the main stage about how they share a common goal of healing and reconciliation with the Catholic Church. The Holy Father will spend most of Friday with the Indigenous people. On his final day in Canada, the Pope will hold private meetings at the residence of the Archbishop of Quebec, including one with a delegation of Indigenous people from Eastern Canada. He'll then fly to Iqaluit, where he will meet with residential school survivors before attending a public community event hosted by Inuit leaders outside a local elementary school. Be sure to stay with Currents News and the tablet for continuing coverage of the papal trip to Canada as the Pope reaches out to the Indigenous people. Amid a spike in crime, New York City Mayor Eric Adams is bashing bail reform, and he's trying to work with state lawmakers to roll back the laws.
I think it is imperative that we look at where the violence is coming from, who are the victims, and what we can do in the current laws that includes bail reform.
Adams added that it's also more than just bail reform. He said the criminal justice system is off the rails. The mayor says he had a great conversation with State Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie about rolling back bail reform laws. Recent crime data released by the NYPD showed that grand larceny in the city spiked 41% in June. Robbery rose more than 36%, and burglary was up almost 34% last month. When it comes to the state of the subway, the MTA says in its latest budget that it's in dire straits. In its preliminary 2023 report, the agency says its fiscal cliff will happen in 2025, 1 year earlier than originally estimated. The MTA blames a slower than expected return to office for many employers and safety concerns among riders. If you've been seeing more rats around the city, you're not the only one. The city's sanitation department just proposed a new plan to curb the rise of the rodents by pushing back the time New Yorkers can put their trash on the curb. At the moment, trash bags are allowed to be put out on sidewalks starting at 4 p.m., but the proposed rule will push that start time back to 8 p.m. There is an exception for trash stored in a can or bin, which will be allowed to be put out at 6 p.m. There's a lot more news headed your way. It's Natural Family Planning Week. We talk about marital love and how the church helps you with infertility. Plus,
I met Jesus in that moment.
Discovering Christ in the Eucharist. That's the purpose of a revival campaign happening in churches and dioceses across the country right now. And a Ukrainian woman flees her country while 8 months pregnant. The act of kindness she received when she got to the States. Coming up. Bishops around the nation this week are paying special attention to marital love and the creation of life. It's Natural Family Planning Week. It's a time to raise awareness about the scientific, natural, and moral methods that can help married couples either achieve or postpone pregnancy. The church condemns the use of unnatural birth control like the pill, a stance that dates back to 1968 when Pope St. Paul VI wrote the encyclical Humanae Vitae. The papal paper taught about God's plan for marriage and the transmission of life, saying every marital act must of necessity retain its intrinsic relationship to the procreation of human life. This week marks the anniversary of the release of that papal paper. Many are using this week to promote infertility awareness in an effort to help those who are struggling to realize that they're not alone. Back in 2019, one Catholic family opened up to Currents News' Michelle Powers about the emotional journey they went on with the dream to expand their family.
With an infant, a toddler, and a preteen, Maria Heyer is on nonstop mommy patrol.
All right, buddy. Just within the Italian community, you know, before you're married, when you get married, when you get married, when you're having a baby, when you have a baby, when you're having the next baby.
But it wasn't always this way. This house used to be quiet.
Just like you look to blame yourself, you look to blame your spouse, you also look to blame God.
After their firstborn,
Maria Teresa,
the Heyers spent years unable to conceive again. Their dreams of having a big family with memories to fill a mantle were falling apart. They turned to doctor after doctor.
I'd be on the 6 train going up to Lenox Hill and wanting to turn around and just go home and just like give up.
Maria, a devout Catholic, refused treatments that were supposed to guarantee a pregnancy, like hormone injections and in vitro fertilization. Doctors told her that was her only option. Desperate for the family of their dreams, the Heyers even went to the Bishop of Brooklyn for advice. He gave them a third-class relic of St. Gerard Majella, the patron saint of expectant mothers and unborn children. He told them to place it under their bed, but that didn't seem to work either. After nearly 6 years, the Heyers were giving up.
You wind up starting to say, well, is it me? And then when you get through the part of accepting whether or not it's me or not, then you also look and say, well, is it you?
Then someone told them about a Catholic alternative.
The job of any doctor is to figure out what's causing the symptoms. And infertility is a symptom. It's a sign that something's going wrong.
Dr. Paul Carpentier is the medical director at the Gianna Center, a small Catholic health center that specializes in women's health and fertility.
She must be happy that this is better.
He's one of the first family physicians trained in something called NAPRO technology, a natural medical approach to treating women's reproductive disorders.
They went step by step to diagnose what could have been preventing any kind of fertility, as opposed to just trying to, get her pregnant.
Neprotechnology is a restorative reproductive medicine, meaning it's based on figuring out what's wrong through tests and studies and fixing it.
And what's wrong is not necessarily revealed in tests, although those are very important. Revealed in surgery, that's very important, but it's also revealed in listening.
Catholic Health Services allows on average 1 hour with patients. Currently, most doctors only see their patients for 7 minutes.
And you can't figure these things out in 7 minutes.
Infertility is common in the United States. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, about 10 in 100 women have difficulty becoming pregnant or staying pregnant. Through simple blood tests and talks, Maria found out she had endometriosis. Soon after her surgery, she and John had an announcement to make. A miracle, a beautiful, healthy baby. Maria credits Neprotechnology. The success rate is the same as IVF, but the prematurity rate is 6-fold less. Dr. Carpentier says they're saving 1 embryo at a time.
Each embryo is a person. And so if you have a person on board, it's like you want to take great care of that. You don't want to subject it to unnecessary risks.
Less than a year after their second born, the Hyers gave birth to another baby. He was born on the feast day of St. Gerard Majella.
I really believe that if you have faith, you don't believe in coincidences, you believe in miracles and providence, and that things happen for a reason. Who's that?
The Hyers think that one day they might give the relic to another couple who just might need a little faith. Michelle Powers, Currents News.
To learn more, just go to usccb.org/topics/natural-family-planning. Meanwhile, the Department of Health and Human Services proposed a new rule Monday. It expands the definition of sexual discrimination to include decisions concerning abortion. If approved, the proposal will make it discriminatory for healthcare providers that receive federal funds to refuse a patient an abortion. It would also add gender identity and sexual orientation as protections from discrimination under the Affordable Care Act. U.S. bishops have condemned the proposal, saying in part, Monday's proposed regulations threaten our ability to carry out our healing ministries and others to practice medicine. This is a violation of religious freedom and bad medicine. The proposed regulations announced that HHS is also considering whether to force healthcare workers to perform abortions against their will or lose their jobs. We call on HHS to explicitly disavow any such intent. The USCCB's National Eucharistic Revival is now in full swing. The campaign released a new video for the faithful to understand just how inspiring the Eucharist can be. Just listen as one of the campaign's preachers, Father Andy Davis, describes a beautiful moment from his childhood when he met Jesus in the Eucharist.
When I was about 5 years old, I have this memory of being at Mass, and I was the bouncy kid that would kind of hop around from one place to another in the pew. My mom would grab me and say, Andy, Jesus is coming. I was like, where? She pointed to the priest as he was getting ready to say those words of institution and said, there is where he's going to come. When you see the priest lift up the host, I want you to say, my Lord and my God, I love you. And I just have this real little memory of seeing that host raised. And I remember in my little heart, in my little voice saying, my Lord and my God, I love you. And there was something that I can remember as being awe-inspiring, that I met Jesus in that moment.
The revival was started by the bishops after a 2019 Pew Research Center study found that a majority of Catholics believe the bread and wine at Mass are just symbols. The Conference of Bishops is inviting all dioceses to sponsor activities at the parish level between now and the national event that will happen 3 years from now. To read more about the campaign and to learn how to get involved, just go to the website eucharisticrevival.org. New York's Cardinal Timothy Dolan is talking about the people closest to Christ, his 12 apostles. In a special video posted on Twitter, His Eminence highlighted 3 of them in particular.
3 of those 12 apostles seem to have a specially close relationship with Jesus: Peter, James, and John. Peter, James, and John. They're mentioned more than any of the other apostles, and they seem to be close to Jesus when he works his miracles or when he's giving his teaching.
Cardinal Dolan went on to talk about a special event that Peter, James, and John were witness to, the Transfiguration of Jesus. The feast day of the Transfiguration is August 6th. Still to come on Currents News, Ukrainian refugees need a lot of help once they flee their war-torn country, but one migrant had a very specific fear when she came to the U.S. And an engaged couple in Washington state escaped a small plane crash with only minor injuries. What they decided to do just days after the crash. One Ukrainian refugee witnessed firsthand the miracle of compassion after doctors in Colorado offered to deliver her baby for free. Ksenia Malik was 8 months pregnant when she fled her war-torn country. Her aunt, who lives in Colorado, begged her to join her there to escape the danger. But after traveling halfway around the globe, Malik grew concerned over the cost of having the baby in America. So it was something of a godsend when her doctors decided to cover the medical costs.
When everything is ruined, like in your previous life, so all plans, all dreams, they were destroyed, the kindness of people like give you hope.
I think we really wanted to do something for somebody in that region, and this was an opportunity that we had that we could jump on.
Oh, so cute. Malik gave birth in June. Baby Regina entered this world weighing 9 pounds, 7 ounces with no complications. Wow, it's a big baby. And finally tonight, their marriage is really taking flight. An engaged couple in Washington state finally decided to tie the knot after their small plane went down. Eric Wilkinson has their story.
Their love story took flight years ago, but it was cemented on a Bothell street. This small plane crash landing after losing its engine.
It was literally stopped.
So the prop was like at a dead stop.
It all started as Alan Kang and his fiancée Rosanna flew their plane home from Tacoma to Everett after visiting friends. But when the engine died, the plane started plummeting.
At first, I did get emotion, like this is scary. This actually just happened, and I just remember telling him, "Hey, this is what you've trained for. I love you, and just glide. Like, let's find our best place to land."
Payne Field was still about 10 miles away, and I-5 was packed with cars. The next best option, 228th Street Southeast, a busy Bothell arterial in the daytime, but not so much at night. So, surrounded by street lights and neighborhoods filled with homes, Alan made the decision to put the plane down. They clipped some power lines, but ended up with just minor injuries.
What's running through my head is like the highway, the interstate is busy, and I had no intention of taking someone with me. Like, if it's us and no one else.
I see him as my hero, to be honest, and he was a hero that saved so many lives that night. And I think it made our relationship a lot stronger.
So strong, just 5 days later, the couple got married on the beach in Steilacoom. They plan to do it about a year from now, but after walking away from a plane crash together, why wait another minute?
At the end of it, we're just like, we just survived something absolutely insane.
The worst thing possible anyone could experience.
Now, pilot and co-pilot begin life as husband and wife, the ultimate wedding crashers.
It's a very scary moment, but it really, for me, it helped me cherish life more and cherish, our relationship together.
I can't imagine if I was alone, like what I would do. I was lucky to have her there.
Wow, congrats to them. That was Eric Wilkinson reporting. Instead of heading off on their honeymoon right away, the couple had a meeting with the FAA to discuss the crash. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.